I've been in contact with Sue for maybe around over a year now, and it's been a real pleasure to work with her. She's the founder of Success Track Enterprise. Apparently, it was based on Star Trek Enterprise, but she sort of adapted the words there. She's a co-founder of Customer Success Mastermind. That's an online training and mentoring program. And I've been on a few of these and they've been excellent, I have to say. She's the founder of a lot of customer success events, mainly in Paris, but also in Portugal, Lisbon specifically. And yeah, she regularly speaks at a lot of different events. So we're really happy to have Sue here today. So Sue will really give a presentation on customer success. Well, I'm not going to say versus, I'm going to say bridging customer success and customer experience. And after this, we'll get into the real discussion. So without further ado, I'll stop sharing my screen and hand over this to Sue.
CX-centric conversation.
Great, thank you, Jonathan. Me too. And it's always a pleasure. And just for the little anecdote, we actually met in Brussels for the first time, didn't we? Just before we had the lockdown, so it was about January, February time. Okay. So thanks again for inviting me. It's a real pleasure. And hello to everybody. So yes, as Jonathan was saying, so I'm Sue. Let's just get on with this. Sue Nabeth more. What I'm going to be presenting in the next 20 minutes is an attempt to try, and as Jonathan said, bridge the gap between customer success and customer experience. And I'll be telling you a little story that happened to me recently here in Paris, which is quite funny. So this is the agenda for today. We're just going to be looking about the history, the origins of customer experience and customer success, and how, in my mind, I think they really are emerging and evolving together. How does customer success and customer experience fit? And also, we're going to be looking why on earth should we be investing in customer success and customer experience as they are bridging together. We're then going to be looking at very briefly at a framework which I've put into place around building customer success and integrating customer experience. And then we're going to be looking how to actually bridge the gap. So that's the agenda for today. I'm having the same problem as you, Jonathan. My slide seems to be stuck.
Yeah, just try and press escape and then
okay.
Do something like that. Sometimes it works.
Let's try. How weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's annoying. Try and...
Okay, here we go. Good. So just very briefly, so as you can all gather from my lousy accent, I'm British originally. But I've been living in Paris now for several years, over 25 years. So when I speak English, sometimes I have a slight French twang, so it's a bit funny sometimes. And I was recently living in Lisbon as well for a couple of years. Still struggling to actually speak Portuguese. And I also lived in Germany. So I feel very European in soul. So we just got the poll here. Okay, so thank you.
Yeah, keep going. So.
Yes, and what I have been doing in my career is working mainly in international companies, as you can see, and all of my roles have been client focused. So I started out in sales and account management, and then more recently I was doing change management for CRM implementations. That's when I first got into customer success because I was very frustrated of CRM implementations not having any kind of ROI to prove the investment. So that's when I got into customer success more recently. And 4 years ago, I actually ventured out and created my own boutique consultancy company called Star Trek Enterprise. And in fact, the slogan of that is, may you succeed long and prosper, because I'm a Star Trek fan. So it's very much inspired. There's a whole storytelling around Star Trek, which I love. And the other one is Customer Success Mastermind, which is an online, ongoing training program, because in customer success, as in customer experience, you just never stop learning, right? You're always learning new stuff. So that's what Customer Success Mastermind is all about. And in addition, I love to evangelize what customer success is. So I love to organize the meetups, the events, and I'm very honored to to be invited, like I was with Jonathan, in different events to speak about it. So that's for me. Let's continue now, if I can, if it will let me. Great. Okay, so this is for the evolution of customer experience and customer success. So in fact, in the beginning, let's say, customer experience, oh, this is quite annoying because I can't, that's it, okay. Customer experience, I think started out probably just before customer success. And it mainly started out in the B2C world, mainly in the retail. But now, of course, customer experience is also being adopted by the B2B world as well, and other verticals. It's not just retail, it's all the other verticals. And it's a lot of large companies are actually investing in customer experience. I was at a recent customer experience event in Paris just before we had the lockdown. It was probably the first time, in fact, I've ever been to a customer experience summit. And I was absolutely astonished. You know, I could have been in a customer success event, right? Because everybody was talking about the same thing. They had the same vocabulary. The only difference that I noticed, perhaps, was the age of the people. So they were more mature in age, like myself, and the dress code, right? So everybody was very smartly dressed in suits and, you know, women in the high heels and everything. When I go to all the customer success events, you know, it's younger in age and it's more like the skinny jean brigade, right? Because we're all working in startups. So that was kind of the only difference, but I could have been in a customer success event. So yes, for customer success, it mainly started out in the US, let's say 15 years ago with Salesforce, so obviously being the major ones, not necessarily the founder of customer success, but they're the ones that certainly vulgarized it. And it started out in B2B. However, now there are more and more B2C companies who are actually adopting customer success as well. So because of the business model of SaaS and recurring revenue, those companies, you know, that it's absolutely indispensable to have customer success. So those are the ones which the majority of customer success professionals are working at right now. But more and more so, as companies are adopting subscription, they may not necessarily be tech or SaaS, but they're also adopting customer success into their organizations. So as I was moving around this event that I was talking to you about in Paris, there were these buzzwords which were not only being presented by the speakers on the stage, but, you know, all the different conversations that I was having. So these are the typical buzzwords which I was hearing during that day: customer experience platforms, loyalty, moments of truth, touch points. Okay, so that was something which was very specific to that day. If we're talking about customer success professionals, they too, we have all these buzzwords going around, and which are actual things which we're doing on a daily basis. So we like to talk about customer success platforms. We don't necessarily talk about customer experience platforms. We talk a lot about health scores. We talk a lot about onboarding. We don't necessarily talk about moments of truth, but we have something similar. We call them engagement models. We talk a lot about being this role of the trusted advisor. So the customer really actually over time trusts you when you become this partnership. And of course we have CSM. CSM means customer success manager. And this is in fact the role, the operational role, which actually partners the customer once they've signed their contract. In some organizations, it can even be before, to make sure that they reach their expected outcomes. So those are the buzzwords in the CS world. And there are, of course, buzzwords and word vocabulary which we're using all the time, which are common to both. So that is segmentation, customer journey, NPS. Yes, we do use NPS in the customer success world, although it is a little bit debated. CSAT. We have this notion of persona. We sometimes call it profiling, but we do have this notion. Of course, we're both concerned about retention. We're both concerned about expansion. And more we're hearing as we're using different tools, and data is so key to what we're doing, right? Key is data in everything across the whole of the customer journey. So we're hearing more and more about artificial intelligence and machine learning. And of course, voice of the customer. So that's something as well, which we hear a lot and we're actually implementing, okay? So that's just to, you know, obviously it's not exhaustive what I'm putting there. It's just to give you a few insights of some of the similarities and some of the common ground, which say that really we started out in two separate historical sources, let's say. We're talking more or less about the same thing. And I think, as Jonathan said in the introduction, it's about time we actually started to talk together. So hence this fantastic podcast that we're doing together. So that's just an introduction to where we're going. And now we're just going to see, where does customer success and customer experience, where do they actually fit together? What's the synergy between them, right? So first of all, this is my definition of customer success. I'm going to be looking at customer experience afterwards. So it really is a win-win business strategy to proactively generate sustainable outcomes and growth for customers and consequently for your company, right? That's my definition. There are other definitions, probably better ones than mine, but if you like mine, that's fantastic. And I really like this picture here, because I think this picture really depicts what customer success is all about, because you see it really is this partnership where you have this, you can see underneath the roots there, where you've got this handshake. And that means that obviously you actually join together as partners. It's probably the first time ever in business history that we do have this dependent partnership where your success as a vendor is dependent on the success of your client. And together, if you get that balance right and you're helping each other to succeed, then you will grow, as you can see with these trees, right? So I really like that picture, and it really depicts what customer success is all about. For customer experience, now this is a definition from my friend who's also based here in Paris, called Hélène Denègre. And we met actually when I was running a think tank here in Paris to talk about customer success, evangelize it. This was about 5 years ago. And during that think tank, we had Helen, and she's a customer experience consultant. She unfortunately couldn't join us today. And she said, you know, when I was speaking, she said, my God, everything you're saying is what we're doing in customer experience. Hence this interest, right? And Helen's definition is, it is the sum result of how the customer perceives each of its interactions with the company over the duration of their relationship. So this, I think the key word there is perception, and that's what we're going to be looking at. But I think it's good to define what we mean by these two and then try and bring them together. So in doing that, I really like another picture, because this is obviously in nature when we talk about mutualism, where it's this dual benefit. So here you can see the bird's benefiting from this deer, and the deer is benefiting because he's getting a free cleanup, right? So he's really happy. And I think now that we're bringing these two together, what we're saying is customer experience is going to ensure the perception of positive sentiment by the customer, either towards your company, your product, your services, all of that. That's even better. Whereas customer success ensures the perception of positive value. So if you can get both of these together, we need both of these. We can't just have one or the other. If you get both of these together, then you will thrive, right? So just to explain that, this is, I don't know about you, I was hopeless at maths at school, but this is okay for me. I can manage this, right? This is a formula which we often see in the customer success world. And this is by courtesy of Gainsight. Gainsight, you've probably heard of. It's one of the leading vendors of customer success platform. And they coined this formula. Customer success equals customer experience and customer outcomes. CO meaning customer outcomes results. So here we can see in a visual way what that means. So customer success is the perception of value, customer experience, the perception of sentiment, customer outcomes, the perception of outcomes. So to give an example of that on the next slide, and I'm very sorry, this is my British side coming out with the dartboards here. So just to exemplify that, we have in the middle CO, customer outcomes. So what does that mean? Basically, it means business gains. You need to be able to measure what are the gains that your customer has achieved thanks to their investment in your product, software, services. You need at the end or before they renew, hopefully some kind of return on the investment. So it's all about performance, it's all about results, it's all about stickiness. And now the customer experience, in fact, I've split into two. I split it first of all into user experience. So obviously if you're selling software tools, it's all about the user interface, the visual design, whether it's interactive. We talk about persona funneling, meaning, you know, you could have different types of ideal customer profiles coming into your tool, and you can funnel the tool so that it is actually customized for their specific use. We can have different use cases, which we're actually reading through usage patterns within the tool as well. And of course, we have the adoption. So that's for the user experience. And then for what I call the AX is the associated experience, meaning everything which is not part of the tool. And so for the associated experience, it could be, you know, how they perhaps use your different resources. That you could have white papers, you could have webinars, you could have events. So that's everything which is creating an experience for them, which is of added value, but it's not specifically related to the tool. And of course, for that, you can use different levels of granularity. So it could be your direct users, and it could be all the stakeholders around that who are not necessarily users of your tool, right? So the AX and UX together, they comprise the customer experience, which means basically, you know, how they position themselves, your brand identity, the lifestyle engagement you're going to be creating over the customer life cycle at each of those touch points, and all the positive perceptions, the positive outcomes that they're going to be having at each of those milestones along the customer journey. Okay. And just to give an example of this, you're all probably using Fitbit every day, right? You're all fit people. So this is a B2C example of what we've just seen. So the CO, the customer outcomes, would be the fact that you can actually measure your progression in fitness, your performance. You have real-time monitoring, and you can actually celebrate your fantastic results, like here, losing those 10 kilos, which I still haven't lost because of the COVID-10, right? So that's what I need to do. And then in terms of user experience, then obviously on the app itself, on the watch, you get the personalized guidance, you get reminders which are personalized, and you get recommendations and benchmarks. So that's all part of the user experience. And for the appropriate experience, the examples, Fitbit, for those of you who are using it, you know that you can subscribe to a newsletter, you have local news, there's an Instagram group, there's an online community. So all that is the associated experience, which counts towards the customer success, so customer outcomes and customer perception, which is the customer experience. Okay. And of course, you know, there are other examples, that's just a B2C, but in B2B world, we could also do the same example. So just to carry on, why invest in customer success and customer experience? Well, I think we're all challenging this, both in customer success and customer experience. It is trying to prove your worth as an organization, because, you know, it's something which is emerging, and, you know, we still haven't actually got any kind of standardization around it. So you're constantly evangelizing it. But for me, customer success and customer experience, it's all about something very positive. And I think, I don't know about in the customer experience world, but that's something which we probably can discuss later in the breakouts. But in the customer success world, we tend to, it's tend to be perceived, I would say, as a churn buster. You know, those are the people who are actually going to make sure that the churn is reduced, which I think is unfortunately a very negative way of looking at it. And I prefer to look at customer success and customer experience as something which is going to positively impact the company, right? So first of all, optimizing the opportunities. Both of them together are going to proactively partner customer outcomes and this return on the investment. Both together, they're going to increase the positive perception and the experience along the whole of the customer journey, not just after the contract is signed, but also upfront. And in doing so, as a consequence, we're going to retain customers, meaning for you as a company, generating more revenues and a higher margin, increasing your customer lifetime value. That is an indicator which some companies are actually measuring as a KPI, customer lifetime value, which means that you're increasing your revenue, but also the expansion through upsells and cross-sells with those customers. And because you're doing such a fantastic job, you're actually going to create client advocates. They're becoming raving fans. If you do all that right, as a consequence, then this notion of churn busters will automatically fit into place, right? So then you'll have minimized churn, minimize negative sentiment towards your company products and services. You're going to rationalize the customer retention and expansion costs as a consequence. And you're also going to decrease the customer acquisition cost. So that looks great. And if we can do that together and not just do it in silos, customer experience and customer success, I think that would be fantastic. Now, this is my what I call the recurring revenue boomerang for customer success and customer experience. Because we're now obviously with subscription and mainly with SaaS, but any business model, we're not just concentrating with acquisition, we're also concentrating now with the retention and the expansion, the so-called second funnel. And that's the magic of putting into place a fantastic customer success and customer experience organization, because in fact, with this boomerang effect, we're going to be driving win-win wealth for both our customers, but also for us as a vendor. So it's this circular, ever ongoing, iterative spiral, kind of viral spiral, of wealth and health for everybody, okay? And what is really important about that is when we're talking about the first funnel, this acquisition, it's all about hope. So of course, you know, we have to make sure that the right expectations right up front are set and that the customer is experiencing a positive experience and his hopes are actually raised to the right expectations. That's really important for this first funnel. And for the second funnel, which is all about reality, right? So when we're talking about reality, it's the perceived value, so in terms of outcomes along that second funnel, but also perceived sentiment. So that's where we too, customer success and customer experience, really need to work together along the whole of the customer journey, right? And together, it really will create this mindset and interdependence, like we see it, this mutuality between customer success and customer experience throughout the customer journey, okay? And customer success, you know, it's kind of two things. In the customer success world, we talk about it as an operational team of people who are partnering post-contract, but it's also this catalyst, which is then going to create this alignment, this synergy, because customer success is also it's the DNA of the whole company, right? So it means that every role within the company, no matter if they're client facing or not, is going to contribute towards customer success. And customer success is kind of the catalyst around that. So in fact, we see, for example, customer success is going to be working hand in hand with marketing to detect promoters and to feed success stories. They're working hand in hand with the sales and the account management to feed the pipe, you know, detecting new opportunities, and they're detecting who are the ideal customer profiles who are really succeeding with their investment. With support, of course, they're working hand in hand to feed the roadmap, to accelerate ticket reductions, and to detect different improvements and ideas about how we can continually improve the products and the services. If you have a professional services team, again, they're working hand in hand to provide a collaboration around everything which is needed in terms of technicalities and function. So that's something which is also something which a lot of teams with professional services are trying to incorporate. Of course, the product. So we're working hand in hand with the product and the research and development, feeding them with ideas for the roadmap, helping them to prioritize the roadmap. Finance, you know, we're actually helping to make sure there's a flow of the treasury and actually speeding up the payments. For companies who are working with partners like integrators, companies are actually now incentivizing their partners to become part of that customer success journey and customer experience journey, right? So all of that just to show you very quickly that customer success and customer experience are really at the heart of the company. And I think that's a big challenge for a lot of us to try and make sure that that catalyst is happening, right? So just to look at the overview of my framework. Now, this is a framework which I've called the opt-in to framework for my consultancy success track enterprise. And it's called the GPS. guide to performance success, because it is in actual fact, it's going to help us to orientate ourselves towards the vision of success of your customers. So basically what it's saying is, first of all, you need to ensure that customer centricity is really at the heart of the company. So that's a big challenge, in terms of transformation, change management at your company, making sure you have the top down buy-in for that, and the vision of what that means. The service alignment, which is another challenge, I think, which we're definitely facing in the customer success world. Everything that we just saw on the previous slide, it's great in theory, but when it comes to practice, it's not easy to do that, right? So that's another challenge. And then we get down to the operationalization. Sorry, that's a long word to say for me. And that is organized around what I call opt-in. So it's a play on words, because we want your customers to opt in for life, but also it's an acronym for a chronological way of approaching customer success and also implementing customer experience. So you can see we start off with organization in the middle here, meaning that you need to have the minimum organizational pillars into place before you can actually set up your customer success best practices and processes. So that's the starting point. And then we go into, once we have the organizational pillars into place, so that would mean a statement for what customer success means, what is its mission statement, is it to do adoption, is it to do retention, is it to do expansion, is it a combination of all those? And then we get into the processes. So the processes, there are so many of them in customer success. There are external facing processes and there are the internal processes. And these are something which basically you've never finished. You can start and then you need to fine tune them all the time. So one of the main ones, for example, the main process is the onboarding process, right? So that's key for customer success, but there are so many others we won't go into detail now. And then the third aspect of this framework is tools. So once you've got the organization and the minimum viable process into place, you can start thinking of the tools which are going to support the organization and the processes. In parallel to these three, we can see these two little yellow arrows coming out from the middle, and they represent information. So all the data, so it means the data that you're going to be collecting for your clients, so that you have this eventually 360-degree view of the client, but also the KPIs around your clients, how they're performing, but also how you as a company is performing. And the integration basically is all the, let's say, transformation efforts, change management efforts that you need to do internally at your company to make sure that customer success and customer experience is adopted by all the roles, but also to help your customer change their ways of working, because there's a lot of change management involved in actually trying to get your customers to adopt your software. Okay. So that's the opt-in framework. And we're going to be actually using this opt-in framework afterwards when we go into the breakout sessions. And all of the breakout sessions is going to be concentrated. One is going to be on organization, the other one processes, tools, information, integration, etc. So we're looking at that later on. Okay. So that's for the opt-in. And then just to finish, we're going to be looking, we saw about those buzzwords at the beginning. And now what I'm going to be showing you is some more. It's not exhaustive, of course, and we'll be talking about some of them afterwards in the breakout sessions. But how can we bridge the gap between customer success and customer experience? So this looks like the Golden Gate. It's not. This is Lisbon. So it's a replica of the Golden Gate Bridge. And I used to live just here 2 years ago. So I feel very nostalgic about looking at that. So to bridge the gap between the two, what I've done here is draw up a list, it's not exhaustive, of the different processes, the different tools and information which we're talking around in the customer experience and the customer success world, and just done a kind of mapping of how they could fit together here, right? So if we're talking about processes, one of the key things is segmentation. So we're both talking about segmentation, yes we are, but perhaps in different ways. So for those of you in the process group, that's something that we could talk about.
So,
we're both, yes.
This is excellent, but this last slide, you're giving them too much information. You're giving them too much. You're giving them the answers. We got to discuss this. We got to discuss this. You know.
Yes. Well, this will give you some pointers, certainly. I mean, I'm not giving the answers because I'm just giving a list here. But what's interesting, Jonathan, is how we're doing this. If we're talking about customer journey maps, okay, what does it mean for a customer experience professional? What does this mean for a customer success professional, right? So that's a list. It's not exhaustive. You probably even use it perhaps if it's helpful for the breakout sessions. But what is interesting, just looking at that, and you can have these slides afterwards as well, is to see, why I've put no. So there are some differences, customer success, for example, I've got 3 no's. So basically, we're not really talking, we talk a lot about empathy, but we're not doing really, I've not heard, at least from my point of view, what we call empathy max. We're not obviously using customer experience platforms, and we're not using what we call the customer experience index, right? And you can do the same exercise from the customer experience point of view, the onboarding. You're not really talking about onboarding, we are, etc., right? So just kind of an appetizer for the breakout sessions. And that's really, if I can go to the next slide, just the conclusion, and then I'll let us go off and break out and do the sessions. I think we should bridge the gap. I think, we're both talking about loyalty. CX Word are talking about loyalty. We're probably talking more about retention. It's the same thing. We're both trying to create customer-centric cultures. I think we should both cohabit. And, one is locking experience, the other one is locking out outcomes.
CX-centric conversation.